You've been scrolling through endless TV specs and wondering if that 65-inch masterpiece will actually fit into your living room life without turning every movie night into a tech support session. You want something that looks great, stays out of the way when you're not watching, and won't bleed your budget for a feature that you'll never use. That hesitation is real, especially when the market is flooded with quantum dot this and AI-enhanced that. If you're ready for an honest take on whether Sony's 65-inch BRAVIA XR-KD is the right balance of picture wow factor and day-to-day practicality, keep listening. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First, let's talk about what you actually experience once the box is off the truck and the TV is finally up on the wall. The biggest thing people notice is the picture. Sony's cognitive processor XR is designed to mimic the way we see, analyzing every frame and adjusting contrast, color, and detail on the fly. In practice, that means a dark scene in a thriller doesn't turn into a gray mush. You still see subtle textures in shadows, while the bright highlights stay punchy without washing out. The KD panel pushes that even further. Quantum dot color adds a saturation that feels more lifelike, and the OLED contrast delivers that deep inky black you only get from true OLEDs. When you sit down to watch a nature documentary, the greens of a rainforest look almost tangible, and a sports broadcast feels like you're in the stadium because the motion is crisp and the colors stay true even when the camera is panning fast. Now, those visual perks are impressive, but they only matter if they fit into your routine. Setting up a 65-inch panel can be intimidating, especially if you've never dealt with a wall mount that can handle the weight of a KD. In my own setup, the VESA pattern line up with most standard mounts, but you still need a sturdy bracket and a couple of helpers to lift it safely. Once it's up, the TV's slim profile keeps the wall looking sleek, and the built-in cable management helps hide the clutter. If you're a DIY-friendly type, the installation isn't a nightmare. If you prefer a professional, factor in that extra cost. What about everyday usability? The interface runs on Google TV, which essentially means you get the whole Android ecosystem wrapped in a TV remote. You can ask Google Assistant to pull up a YouTube video while you're cooking, or tell it to turn on the lights if your living room smart bulbs are linked. The all your game settings in one place menu is a neat touch for gamers. Everything from HDR mode to variable refresh rate toggles lives under a single heading. For a PlayStation 5 owner, the HDMI 2.1 support really shines. You get 4K at 120Hz, low input lag, and auto-low latency mode that flips on the second you launch a game. In a real-world test, a fast-paced shooter felt responsive enough that you could actually see the difference between a 4 milliseconds and a 10 milliseconds lag, something casual viewers rarely notice. That said, the TV isn't a magic wand for every scenario. The picture is phenomenal in a dim or dark room, but if you have a sun-filled living space with large windows, you'll need to crank the brightness up. The KD can hit impressive nits, but you'll still see some glare if the wall isn't treated with anti-glare film or you don't use curtains. In my experience, watching daytime news on a bright morning required a noticeable boost in the backlight, which slightly muted the deep blacks for a moment. If you plan to use the TV as your primary screen for daytime TV or as a window into the outside world while the sun is blazing, you might want to consider a panel with higher peak brightness or a dedicated room darkening solution. Another practical point is the audio. Sony ships this model with a decent set of speakers for an ultra-thin TV, but the soundstage is still limited compared to a soundbar or a full home theater system. Dialogue is clear, and the built-in subwoofer gives a modest bass thump, but if you're a cinephile who expects booming explosions without adding external speakers, you'll end up buying a soundbar anyway. The good news is that the TV's HDMI ARC port makes hooking up a higher-end audio system straightforward, so the TV isn't a dead end, it just won't replace a dedicated audio setup. Who should seriously consider this Sony? First, anyone who already has a PlayStation 5 and wants a TV that can keep pace with 4K 120 gaming without hunting for a separate monitor. The low input lag, HDMI 2.1 bandwidth, and the dedicated game menu make that a plug-and-play experience. Second, movie buffs who value accurate color and deep contrast will appreciate the KD panel. It handles HDR10, Dolby Vision, and Sony's own XR Contrast Pro in a way that feels more cinematic than most LED alternatives. Third, households that already lean into the Google ecosystem, smart lights, Nest thermostats, or a Chromecast built-in routine will